Hi there, it's Ben with OnCall Air. Thanks for joining the webinar today. In today's webinar, we are going to talk primarily about FlexJob. We're assuming that you're already an existing user of OnCall Air. You might be an admin user, you might be a consultant user, but hopefully you'll learn more about FlexJob. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the version 2 release, which is a bunch of new features that we just added to the FlexJob feature. We'll do a refresher first on what FlexJob is all about. We'll jump into a quick demo just to make sure you understand and see some real world examples of it. And then we'll come back to the presentation, talk a little bit more specifically about the new features and what they can do for you. We'll also cover some key concepts. We think that there's a couple key concepts that if you can get familiar with, it'll make it much easier for you to implement FlexJob in your business. We'll then show you a few different demos about building a FlexJob and also the administrative section as well. And finally, we'll end with some resources that you can use to get more familiar and test it out and start using FlexJob in your business. So just to refresh, what is FlexJob? Why did we build FlexJob? Well, the best way to explain it is really going through these five goals that we had with FlexJob. The first thing is that we wanted to make it so that you could use OnCall Air in scenarios where you might be quoting a repair job, but you also want to show the customer maybe a couple of replacement options as well. So with FlexJob, you can do that using all of the power of OnCall Air. So you can have a repair job or a couple of repair options very custom to that particular home or the needs of that homeowner. And next to that, you can have a couple of replacement options. So that can be really powerful. The second thing is we wanted to make it so that you can have better and more powerful recommendations. Right now, this is a very popular feature in OnCall Air, the ability to recommend a product or a service. With a FlexJob, you can recommend a more complete package of products or services. So for instance, if you wanted to recommend upgrading the ductwork in a home, and it's a very custom recommendation that has labor and might have some products, you can build that on the fly, package it, price it uniquely for that home, and then make that a recommendation. So it's not necessarily embedded in the price of the quote. It's something that the customer can then decide if they want to do that additional work. The third thing here is quoting unique jobs. These are jobs that are not standard perhaps in your day-to-day business, but you want to use OnCall Air and the power of presenting a quote, emailing it, tracking it, all of that. So it could be a commercial job. It could just be a non-standard job from what you're typically using OnCall Air with. The fourth item on this list is packaging job information. This is really the concept of maybe building a kit so that you can, even for a traditional replacement job where today you're going through and adding accessories and you're adding installation items to every quote. If you build that all into a package, you can do that, build a package that includes the standard accessories and includes the standard installation items, and then just with one click, attach that package to the system that you're quoting. So this will make more sense when I show you in the demo, but it can be a real time saver and can keep your system much more consistent in the way that you and your team are quoting jobs. And then the fifth thing I have here is extending the use of OnCall Air to other business lines. So if, we have users and customers and contractors out there that might have an electrical business line. Maybe they have a plumbing, air quality, water quality, etc. So why not take the power of something that you're really familiar with for HVAC and use that for other types of jobs in your company? So that was one of the original goals with FlexJob. And with version 2, we've really across the board made improvements based on feedback that we've received from users. I'll go through these quickly and we'll dive into this in more detail in a sec. So the first thing is we just made ease of use improvements across the board, just to make it more intuitive and more easy to navigate FlexJobs, whether it's on the admin side or when you're building a quote and making adjustments to that FlexJob. The second thing is supporting installation items. So in the first version of FlexJob, you could not add installation items that you may have already created. Now FlexJobs, you can create FlexJobs with installation items as an admin, and you can add installation items as you're building a quote as well. The third thing is new pricing strategies. So this is really powerful. If you're, for instance, using FlexJob and you're using it for a second business line, perhaps let's just say electrical, as an example, you could set a different margin target, different labor cost for the electrical category. So when you build a FlexJob for that category, that business line, it's going to use the appropriate margin settings there. So that can just make it much more powerful, much more specific to your business requirements. The fourth thing is really probably the most powerful thing that we've introduced here, which is dynamic editing. With this new feature, what you're able to do is, as you're building the quote, you can make all sorts of changes and updates. You can add products, you can add installation items, you can remove products, you can change the quantity of products on the fly really quickly. We'll show you examples of that, but a lot of work went into this to making it easy to do. And once you get familiar with it, I think it's something that you're going to really see the power and see the time savings. And then the last thing is improving the presentation. So we made just some tweaks and enhancements to make it to improve the way that the items that are presented in the FlexJob present to your customer, whether they're looking at it on your device or they're looking at it on their phone remotely. So let's dive into the first demo where we'll walk you through presenting. What does it look like when you present different examples of a FlexJob? Okay, so in this example, we're going to take a look at a proposal. This is the proposal option that I've selected already, so hopefully this is very familiar to you. And in this case, I've included a traditional system. So this is a 3-ton AC air handler combination. And there's 2 different FlexJobs here and 2 FlexJobs in the recommendation. So we'll walk through these so you can see what a FlexJob looks like. And of course, I've already built this. In the second part of this, I'm going to show you how to build it. But this will give you a good idea of what some of the things, examples of what you can accomplish with the FlexJob. And I'm going to emphasize some of the version 2 features that we just upgraded. So let's take a look at this example. Of course, here I have my outdoor, my indoor unit, a little note introducing this to the customer, and there's nothing else in this particular option. I think you're typically used to seeing accessories, installation items. You can of course still do that, but one of the new things that you could do with FlexJob is create a FlexJob that includes a description of what you do on every installation. So this could be kind of a standard language that you have, and you use this for all your HVAC replacement jobs as an example. And then that FlexJob can include multiple products, right? So your thermostats and your services and anything else that you're doing to customize and differentiate your quotes. And the FlexJob can also include the installation items that you're accustomed to using. So the big difference here is that this is all packaged as one FlexJob, and you can add it to the system, and it'll price and it'll add it to the above system, but it saves you a ton of time and it keeps your selling process much more consistent because you're clicking once to add this. If you need to make an adjustment for this particular home, you can still make the adjustment. That's also part of the version 2 upgrade. But what you'll just notice is that it still presents very nicely, and it allows you to kind of wrap everything with your particular brand message as well. The second FlexJob that I've included in this quote is an example for a ductless system. So imagine that you have a one kind of a container FlexJob that describes ductless work, and depending on that home, you can alter that FlexJob by adding, removing different products to that job. And of course, you can also add and remove installation items as necessary for that particular quote. And this all becomes one FlexJob. What's nice about it is that you can introduce the work that you're going to do at the very top. And if you have something custom for this particular job, you have a space as you're customizing the FlexJob to describe that as well. So this can be really useful to personalize the job or just to make it much more specific to that particular scenario. So again, what you're seeing here it's very familiar in the sense that you're still using, and the presentation looks the same way. It looks great on the phone as well. You're seeing the kind of the traditional system that you're used to, and instead of seeing accessories or installation items the way that you're accustomed to, they're included here, but they're packaged in a bit of a different way. Now, if I go down here and we look at the recommendations, we'll see these are some pretty unique recommendations. In this case, I'm recommending custom work. So this is a ductwork job, right? And if I click on that, you'll see that it really doesn't have any products. It's just a description of the job, and I've priced it out for the customer. So this is just very custom. I can do this very quickly, and then that's included as a recommendation, and then you can add it, right? So some people may have used custom installation items to customize work on a job, but you couldn't recommend that. With a FlexJob, you can create this very quickly, add whatever labor, material, products you need to, and then make it a recommendation to the customer. So that can be pretty powerful because, of course, if you're using financing, it'll also translate for your customer what the monthly looks like for that additional service. In this case, I'm recommending an air purification. And maybe, if we imagine that this was a 2-system home, or you want to recommend 2 systems or 3 systems, if I click on this, you'll notice that the recommendation has an introduction to what you do, and this is you can reuse this and make this standard for your company. And then I have not just 2 products here, right? So I have a quantity of 2 of this particular air cleaner. I could have had multiple products here, but in this case, I just want 2. And I've included some installation items, right? So this really fills out that recommendation. It's not just a product. All of this allows you to also have much more flexibility in how the pricing is being calculated behind the scenes. So once you kind of adopt this as a way to recommend products, it can be much more powerful and more efficient in your business. So that is an example, different kind of real world examples of how you can use FlexJob. Now we're going to step back and dive a little bit deeper into the new features. Okay, now that you've seen what you can do with the FlexJob, let's walk through some of the new features. We're going to go through this fairly quickly, and then we'll show you actually all of these features in action, so you have a chance to kind of really understand it. So the first part of this, I'll show you some of the features and how they look in the office. So this is the administrative side of the system. If you're more of a consultant and you're just building quotes and presenting, then you can skip forward and to the section where I talk about app enhancements. So the first big addition with version 2 of FlexJob is the ability to now add installation items into a FlexJob. So now you can add equipment, accessories, and installation items into a single FlexJob. So you can really use the full power of what you've set up in OnCall Air already and make these kits that I mentioned earlier, so that you can make it like a one-click operation to add the right products and work items, installation items to a job. The second thing is that now you have much more control over the pricing, margins, labor rates that are applied on the FlexJob. So what you'll see here in this example is there's a default pricing strategy that applies to any FlexJob. So in this case, I have a 40% gross margin. I have 130 labor hourly cost. The tax paid 4%, which is automatically added as a markup to any products that you include on the FlexJob. And now what you can do is, if you want to, you can create a new pricing strategy for your electrical category, for instance, or you could do that for commercial HVAC. Maybe you have a different margin target for those jobs. Maybe for your service and repair, you have a higher margin target and maybe a lower labor hourly, or vice versa. So if you want to, you don't have to create these, but if you want to, now you can create different pricing formulas. Basically, we call them pricing strategies for different categories, and then the system will take care of doing the right price calculation based on the type of FlexJob that you're building. Another feature that's going to make life easier is now it's just easier and simpler to upload an image. Images can be really important in the FlexJob because it allows you to put something that visually is appealing to your customer. It might be your logo, it might be some badge that you have, it might just be example images like I have here. But now the system will take really any format of image you have, and it'll try to resize it appropriately automatically instead of asking you to crop it, right? That was a little bit frustrating in the first version. We've solved that here. It just makes it easier. Regarding to pricing, there is when you bring in a accessory and equipment or an installation item, some users have done a price override on that particular installation item, meaning that you kind of ignore the cost on that product, and instead of using the markup scale, you set the actual selling price that you want for that product. We call that a price override on the item, and you may want to keep that when you're adding installation items into your FlexJob. So for instance, if you're adding, let's say you had running a permit job, and you wanted to make sure that that's always going to add a $300 retail price impact to your quotes, and you've set that in your installation items as $300 selling price. What you can do when you create a FlexJob that includes that, you can say, I want to retain any price overrides. In other words, the FlexJob will not try to recalculate the price based on the input cost of that item, it'll say, okay, I'm gonna, if the installation item has had an override, I'm gonna retain that. So I know that's a little bit confusing to explain. You can kind of take a look at it here. The best thing to do is just try it, try a few examples, think about what you're trying to solve, build that flex job, and test it out, and you'll see how what the impact is on your pricing as you're building it out. Now, shifting over to the app where you build quotes and present quotes, the first and really what I would say one of the biggest features in version 2 of FlexJob is that now you have full control to really edit that FlexJob on the fly. So you can add products, you can change the quantities of products. So if you want to build a flex job and your standard flex job includes one air purifier, for example, you can now go in there and click add a second air purifier. It will reprice automatically. You can change installation items, you can add them, you can remove them. Very flexible and much more powerful. You can do this across the board before you add items to each proposal option. You can also do editing once you've added to a proposal option as well. And you'll see that in the demo that I show you in a second. You can also personalize the label for the flex job. This can be super helpful for your customer, to have a more personal kind of description of what's included in this work. And it's also super helpful for your team, right? So your installation team, when they're reviewing the inspector, reviewing the job sheet or the proposal, they know exactly what the intent was of that particular job. We've also given you more flexibility in different ways to communicate. So sometimes if you're quoting like a bigger job and it's a commercial job and you want to really describe all the work you're going to do, and sometimes in more of a text or a paragraph, you can do that now with using what you're accustomed to, like making things bold, putting things in bullets. Just more powerful, makes it a cleaner presentation, a more organized presentation when you're showing this to your customer. Now, of course, the inspector, that's not a new feature, but the inspector handles all of this. So inspector is a really great tool to, especially when you're getting started with FlexJob, to click on it as you're building a job, take a look, see what's happening behind the scenes, and really understand how the pricing is being built. And also, of course, when you're quoting or when your team member is quoting, you can always go in there, look at the inspector and see exactly what products and installation items have been added to that job. I mentioned this earlier, but you can also edit, even previously you can only edit the flex job before you added it to a proposal. Now you can obviously edit after you add to proposal, and it can be even later in the process. So you just need to click up on each option. It'll expand that particular option. In this case, I've clicked on option A, and here are my recommended flex jobs. I can go ahead and click the view edit button right there and make any edits to that specific version of the flex job as well. So it just makes life easier. You don't have to kind of go back and redo things to make a change. And then finally, that I mentioned that on the office you can put bold and bullets and links. This is an example of what it looks like on the presentation, and you'll see that now it's nicely kind of positioned at the top. So this is something typically if you're putting notes on that flex job for the homeowner, you want that to be featured, and so that they know exactly. It might be a way for you to customize the description of the work you're going to do, so now it's nice, it doesn't get lost when you present it. So along with this, there's three kind of concepts that we think are useful to have in mind as you're embracing or starting to use the flex job, and we'll walk through those now. The first thing is this concept, I just call it stacking, but the idea is that when you drag a system into one of these options, you might be accustomed to dragging the system, and then you go through to the next step and add your accessories, and then you add your installation items. With a flex job, what you can get accustomed to is this idea that you can stack items. So you might add a system, but then your flex job would contain all of your accessories and installation items that you want to add. So instead of going through and selecting all of those one by one, you could create a kit, a package, flex job, and move it up there, and it will add properly to the price, and the presentation will look the way that you expect it to. Again, something to play around with, test it out, get comfortable with it, but it's that concept that sometimes people don't realize, that you can keep dragging things into this box, and it just keeps expanding what is available in that proposal option. It's a pretty unique and pretty powerful feature of OnCall Air. The second thing to keep in mind is that the pricing approach for FlexJobs is different, is separate from the pricing that you may have set up for your systems or the pricing you've set up in the accessory markup scales and installation item markup scales. Pricing is a complex topic, and there's many ways to set pricing, but what we want to do with FlexJobs is to simplify it and make it more powerful and not interfere with any of the pricing that you've set up or the pricing formulas and assumptions you've set up with your systems. So just getting used to how FlexJob pricing settings works, how the gross margin applies to all your products, installation items in your FlexJob, and understanding that that's separate from what's driving your system pricing. It's just useful to get familiar with that and kind of just understand that it's a separate kind of pricing engine that drives the FlexJob. And then the third thing is that this concept of customization. So some of our users have created a lot of FlexJobs in the office, and the idea really which is fine, but one of the things to think about is that you can create kind of a base template FlexJob that has kind of the basic description of that job and maybe the default products or installation items that you want on the FlexJob, and then leverage the power that you can customize that on the fly when you're actually building the quote. So you don't have to kind of create a ton of FlexJobs behind the scenes. You can create the basics of it, reuse that, and adjust it and fine-tune it as you're building that quote. So it just saves you a lot of work. This requires a little bit of planning and just kind of thinking through the different types of scenarios, but kind of getting comfortable with that concept that you have a base FlexJob and then you can adjust it on the fly when you're building will save you time and your team time as you're building quotes. So now let's take a look at the second demo, which is actually building a FlexJob. Okay, so let's take a look now at how I would actually build a quote using FlexJobs. So in this case, hopefully this is a familiar screen. I'm quoting, I'm going to quote two options in this particular case, right? And I've already dragged my two options in here for, two systems. And of course I can always click on here and see what I have. So I have my condenser and my fan coil, and I have a best and better option, right? So the first thing is these are set up right now so that it's just the equipment, right? And it's just pricing the equipment in this example. I want to add my installation kit. So as I mentioned previously, one of the things that you can do now is you can use a FlexJob to create kits. So I have this Champ Deluxe AC installation kit, and I've set it up so it works for my 1.5 to 3 ton. So the whole idea is that I can reuse this for any sort of AC plus air handler installation. I've created a kit, or my admin, my sales manager has created a kit that includes everything that's necessary for that type of job, and it has a nice description at the top that really differentiates the work that you're going to do, that your company is going to do. It has the products that are standard, and it has the installation items that are standard. What's really powerful too is that not only do you have the installation items that you're familiar with, but I can go ahead and make some changes to this before I include it in that job. So for instance, let's just assume that I'm not going to reuse the concrete pad. I'm actually going to build a pad for this job. So I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to go up here and say construction, and I find my install new concrete pad. This is showing me the price impact of that particular item. It gets added into that package, into this kit. So I'm changing the kit for the needs of this particular job. I can add description here. I can add additional material and cost, and this is something that you were already familiar with in FlexJobs. I have my internal notes here. So if I'm a manager and I want to make sure my team is, has some tips or checklist of things that they should look at when they're quoting the job, it can be there. And of course I can edit quantities and amounts here as well. So the other nice feature here is that I can change the name of this, right? So I could say, let's just say King Home Installation Kit, right? So I can really customize that so the customer really feels like this is custom for them, which is always nice. So now I have my installation kit. I've made my edits to it, and I can now drag this up into both of these options. So I'm not going to You actually don't drag with FlexJob, and this takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's much more powerful once you get the hang of it. What you can do is basically use the include button. The include button will, if you do include all, it'll include it across every option that you have here, or you can just include it one by one. So I'm going to click on include here, and then I'm going to click on include there. And now what's happened is that I have my system here, so I have my main equipment system, and now I have that kit included in this quote. You can always use the proposal inspector to kind of see exactly what's in there, of course, right? So you can see what's, your Swiss system, and then you can see what's in your FlexJob. In this case, everything that's in my FlexJob is there. So that's always just a reminder that the inspector has everything, including FlexJobs, in it. So now each of these has the installation kit, and what I can do now is I can now go and add a recommendation. So let's just say I want to recommend air quality. Now I can use the categories to find things, right? Or I can search. Search is really powerful. And let's say that this is the air quality upgrade. So this FlexJob, if I look at it here, right, shows me what the standard package looks like, right? So in this case, I have one air cleaner, and I have some installation items here. What I can do now with this new version of the FlexJob is that I can customize this. And let's just say I need 2 of these, right? So I click on 2. This has been customized. I could change the name, 2 systems. So it's really clear to the customer that they're getting 2. And I close this, right? And now it is showing me the recalculated price here. And in this case, instead of including it, I really want to recommend it. So I don't even have to, of course I could expand this. I don't need to do that. I could just say recommend all, right? And if it flashes here green real quick, lets you know what's happened. You can click in here, and now you'll see on the right, you see the recommended items, right? So here's the 2 systems. If I wanted to then customize it here, I could also customize it, right, after I've added it. Now in this case, I'm only customizing that specific option, right? So if I want to customize it for all of the options I'm quoting, then I would do that before I add it. Let me close this up, right? And then as another way to show the capability of the recommendations, I could do something like, let's see if I have a ductwork job. So here we go. Like, let's say ductwork enhancement, right? Let's see what this looks like, right? So this is a basic job. It has no products. It has no installation items. All I want to do with this is say, enhance and replace ductwork throughout home, 3,000 square feet. So I'm going to just make something up here. I'm going to say that's $600 material, and I'll say that is 10 hours of labor. So it'll use my calculations and my pricing strategy for the FlexJob to calculate the price. And it's a big job, right? So I may not want to include it. The customer might be on the fence about that. Maybe I've explained the advantages of this. And now I want to recommend this, right? So I could just click recommend all, or I could click recommend on each option here. Why not? Let's just recommend it. And now you'll see that I have 2 recommendations, and they're both FlexJobs on this. And I have same thing, right, for a different job. Now, the last thing that I'll show you here is an example of a ductless system. So let me pull up ductless. And in this example, I have kind of a default ductless package with an indoor-outdoor unit. Now, maybe I'm doing this for the sunroom. So the first thing I want to do is say, ductless system for sunroom, right? And I could call it the King Home if that's the name of the customer, just to really, add an extra personalization touch. This is the description, right? This is standard, so you don't have to retype this. Now, this is set up by the admin. I'll show you that in the last section of the demo. But once that's set up once, then when you're quoting, you're reusing all of that. The nice thing about this is that I could change this. Maybe it's a different brand, a different product, and in this case, maybe this is size. So I need to go with a second system indoor. Now, this is probably not a match, obviously, but I'm just using this for sake of example, for illustration. I could add another product here. I could say, I'll just use this brand for now. Well, this is matching on a lot of things, but let's see. Agree. Okay, probably not a good example match, but as you can see, you can search products. Any product that you've set up in your system will be there, and then you can add it here. So if you want to completely change this and customize it, it'll change it, and it'll reprice it automatically based on your settings. I could say something here like this ductless job for the sunroom could start 2 days after the main home is completed. So you can just make this more custom. End users, customers love personalization and knowing that this is not just some generic quote that you're building. So this can be very useful for that. Now I've customized this, and all I want to do is include it as its own option, right? Just to show you what that looks like, right? So now I have my 3 options ready to go, and I'm going to skip forward. I'm going to skip accessories. I'm not going to hunt through all the accessories because they're already in that kit. I'm not going to go through installation items because I've already done all of the work here in the proposal section. Of course, you can still use all of this for your systems the way you're accustomed to, but hopefully you see that at this point I'm not going through any of this because I've saved all that time by just doing it using the FlexJobs over here. And then everything else works the same way as you're accustomed to. So in this case, I'm going to look at the summary, review everything, maybe add a couple of rebates. I have the inspector, of course, so I can review it in much more detail as to what's included in that job. I've already included financing on those 2 options. Let me include financing on this option as well. And then I can go ahead and present. Right, and then we'll see what I had already shown you, which was on the presentation view. In this case, I have my system. I could add my note, and then I have my installation kit that includes my accessories, my services, and the items that I want to include as well. And I have my 2 recommendations. Both were built, using FlexJob. So you can see when the customer is looking at this and maybe on their phone, they're seeing like a really good description of what that work is going to be for their home. So that is an example of a couple of examples of building using OnCall Air to build FlexJobs to really enhance what you can do with your quotes. Okay, so now that you've seen an example of how you can build a FlexJob and the new dynamic editing features, we'll show you a quick tour of the back office, the office, where you can administer, create, manage FlexJobs and their pricing. Okay, so for the last part of this demo, this is really intended for administrative users, and I'm going to walk through different areas of the office, kind of highlight key areas. There's a good bit here to understand about FlexJobs, so I'm not going to go into tons of detail, but at least guide you through some of the newer upgrades with version 2 of FlexJobs. So I'm in the office now, and I click on FlexJobs, right? No, this really hasn't changed. You can still search for your FlexJob by name, by description. You can narrow down by category, right? So here I'm seeing my indoor air quality jobs, and I'm going to go ahead and click on this one, the Champ Air Quality Upgrade. So we'll use this one as an example. Now you'll notice that this is under the category indoor air quality, right? And the first thing that I want to kind of highlight here is the concept of a pricing strategy. So I have down here my target gross margin. This is coming from my default pricing strategy, 40%, right? So what I'm going to do is, and this is kind of I'm also going to show you a little bit of a trick here. So what I'm going to do here is right click on in Google Chrome, and this works in Safari as well. I want to duplicate this tab. What this allows me to do is kind of stay inside of OnCall Air. And when I'm setting things up, I can kind of go back and forth between the 2 tabs. It makes life a little bit easier so you don't lose what you're working on. On this new tab, what I'm going to do is go into the the new pricing strategy section of the office. So I go to pricing engine, and then at the bottom we have FlexJob pricing settings, right? So you'll notice here that I have two settings. The default is 40% gross margin, etc. And I've created a pricing strategy for a ductwork category. I'm going to remove that. It's okay, you can remove it. Now anything that was in ductwork will now automatically inherit the new gross margin target, which is coming from default. What I want to do is find indoor air quality, right? And I'm going to create a new pricing strategy for that. So I will put 60% as my gross margin target. I want to have a base cost because I know that there's more costs that I have to cover on these jobs. So I'll just put 120 as an example. Maybe my labor rate's a little bit lower for my indoor air quality team. So I'll save that. Now we have a new pricing strategy. If I go back here and I'm going to go close this, I want to open this up one more time. So I'm going to click on my category here. I'll go to this job. I must have reset that. So indoor air quality. And now I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and what you see that we're using the 60% and we're using the base cost, and the labor cost is being calculated based on that specific pricing strategy. So that can be pretty useful if you're using OnCall Air with FlexJobs for a whole new business line that has different pricing and different cost assumptions. So a few other things that you'll notice here, and again I'm sticking to the new features primarily. You can clone the job. Sometimes I'll remind you of this feature because this is not new, but it's a really useful feature. Once you've created it, maybe an install kit for your heat pump installs, and you want a version of that install kit for maybe your 3 to 5 ton systems, then you can clone that FlexJob and just tweak it for the things that are unique to that 3 to 5 ton type of job. You'll notice the description. I can go in here and make things bold. I can so I'm just going to say air quality upgrade. We'll make it bold. We'll underline this. You can add links, etc. Right? This is helpful if you're featuring that FlexJob on the main comparison page. Before you go into the proposal detail, you'll see the featured highlights. Images, pretty straightforward. You just click on it, find the image on your system, on your desktop or wherever you've downloaded it, and upload it. Again, I mentioned earlier that that's something that's just a lot faster now. I will mention as well that if I open up a new tab and I go to help.oncallair.com, let's say you're trying to find an image to use on a FlexJob, and maybe it's an electrical job that you're creating. So we have a page where we have uploaded a catalog of images that you can reuse, as long as you're using these images inside of OnCall Air, right? They're not licensed for use elsewhere, but you can use these for OnCall Air. So let's just say electrical, right? So you'll see that we have my connection is a little bit slow here. So you'll see that we have a variety of images that could be useful to represent the job that you're going to be quoting, right? So what you can do is right click on the image, save the image, and then you would go back into the FlexJob, find the image, and upload it here, right? Simple as that. The product installation item price, I'm not going to show that here, but really if you turn this on, it's what I mentioned earlier. This will retain any price overrides that you had on products or installation items. This is the new section here is adding installation items, right? So these are example installation items here. I'll just show you how that works. So when you click on that, you'll see kind of the standard list of installation items that you're already familiar with. I'll expand this, and then all I have to do to add it is add it. It'll include it. This has a zero cost, but if it did have a cost, it would add the margin, right, that you've set for this particular pricing strategy, which is 60%. Note, this is only visible to your team. So this is where you can put a checklist of items. So as they're building the quote, it's like a reminder or reference for your team to remember to do something or ask a question or take a picture, whatever that is. And then the pricing calculation is being updated dynamically, so you can refer back to as you're building and adding products, you can see exactly how the price is being calculated. This is really useful when you're building a job for the first time. You can come down here and see what the pricing impact is every time you add something. I'll also point out that you have the ability to override the price here. The one key thing to understand about overriding the price of the FlexJob itself is that once you override the price, you cannot dynamically add new products or installation items during the build process. This is because we want to avoid having a potential mistake where somebody overrides the price. As an admin, you set a price of $3,000. When you're overriding it, you're basically telling the system, this is the price that I want. So if we allowed customization of adding new products or installation items, then potentially your specific price could be overridden, and it could lead to losing money or something happening that was not your intent as an administrative user of the system. So that is basically the key updates in version 2 as they relate to the office. So once again, remember you have the ability to set your pricing strategies. You have the ability to add installation items. Uploading images has become a lot easier, and that is it. So we'll go back and wrap up the presentation. And that wraps up the webinar, the introduction to FlexJob version 2. So the last thing to leave you with is some resources. Help.oncallair.com. This is our help section, so we have a lot of tutorials and articles that explain some of these features in more detail. We're also going to be linking this webinar in that help section as well, so you can share it with your team members easily. And 2 resources you may not be too familiar with, community. So we have a community that meets up on Friday, typically Friday afternoons. Kind of depends when you're hearing this particular webinar, but we do have a community, and you can find out more details about that and how to engage with that community in this in the help link or the chat bubble that you have inside of OnCall Air. The community is wonderful. It's typically a small group of contractors from around the country that work together. It's a fun meeting, but it's also a place where you can ask questions and they'll share advice, and it may not be necessarily related to OnCall Air. Oftentimes it is, and you can get other contractors to kind of explain how they're using new features like FlexJob in their business. And then, of course, the other thing is that we always encourage, we have a wonderful team here, the customer success team that's available for training calls. So, again, if you click on that chat bubble, you'll see an option to select a one-on-one training call, and you can put a note in there to say that you'd like to focus on FlexJob as well. So hopefully with all of that, you'll find this to be a powerful new tool. Again, I would say that my main suggestion to get comfortable with this is just to test it out. Build a couple FlexJobs, test it out, see what it's like to quote and build and present, and use the test feature when you click on it, because those quotes don't count towards the pricing of OnCall Air. So those are basically unlimited, and they're designed for you to get comfortable with new features like this. Thank you.